All right, guys, excuse the mess. Wanted to make a quick video helping some of you home tuners. Um, there's a lot of questions about bleeding these WP shocks. Do you need a vacuum machine? Do you not need a vacuum machine? Guys, the best way to do it is with a vacuum machine. But let's be honest, for most of you guys doing your own shocks, that just doesn't make much sense to put all that effort in it and then you don't use it enough to really get good at using it. So yes, you can bleed these at home, similar to how we've done KYBs and shows for years. A lot of people kind of understand this, but don't really have a thorough understanding on it. So I'm going to tell you right now how you know if you're doing it right. So what I do is flip the shock upside down, fill it up, put the seal head and shaft in, just like you would on a normal KYB or something over the years. And what you're going to do is put it in a different vise or something that allows this bleed hole to be at the highest point of the shock. You're going to want a bleed cup. This one's by DRC. This makes the job so much easier. Yes, it could technically be done without it, but you will literally have to be bleeding this, stroking this shock shaft and pouring, keeping this hole topped off with fluid. It's really hard to do, and it's really messy and not worth it. Get yourself a bleed cup. They're cheap. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to keep this full of fluid. And while this is full of fluid, you're just going to bleed this shock shaft. Now, I know what everybody's going to ask. They're asking about piston height. You don't really have to worry about piston height if you've already measured it. So measure it first before you start bleeding the shock. By measuring it, I mean I'm using a little Allen wrench. They make tools to do this. You can use something like this, but you're going to put it in the hole down here where you fill with nitrogen, and you're going to push this piston right here all the way up till it stops. Put your mark there. Most of these shocks, you can see I got a Sharpie mark on mine somewhere here. See that? So anyway, most of these shocks are around 5 millimeters of piston height. So what does that mean? That means that by the time you get done bleeding this, you're going to pull it all the way out. And what you want to do is push it back in as hard and fast as you can. And that's going to let the air bubbles out, but it's also going to push this piston down. And by the time you're done bleeding, the piston should probably be pretty much all the way down at the bottom. This one pretty much is, and I'm not done yet. So then, once you're done bleeding and your piston's at, pretty close to the bottom, you're going to push this back in minus the 5 millimeters. That's going to give you 5 millimeters of space up here. And that's so when your shock shaft is fully protruded, the piston is not hitting the top of the res. And that'll also give you enough space so that when you do compress, you're not hitting the bottom of the res. So it's going to be messy. Once you get everything bled, you're going to set your piston height. And as you're setting your piston height, yes, fluid is just going to flow out of this. And when you're completely done, you're going to have fluid in the cup, and you're just going to have to screw it off, and it's going to be messy. Just make sure there's fluid sitting on the top of this when you put the bolt on, and you should be good to go. So I hope that helps a few people with some confusion.